Although VR gamers still make up a small percentage of the overall gaming community, I feel like with the MetaQuest 3S release just a few months ago, as of making this video, it's definitely gaining a bit more traction. The barrier to entry in terms of cost now is definitely lower than it used to be, but it's still a good chunk of change. Now, if you're going to spend $300 to $500 on a VR, you're likely not going to want to spend another $60 or $70 on each game title for your new VR. Well, luckily there are actually plenty of good free VR games out there on Steam for you to play. Our goal with this video is to highlight some VR games that you may not know about. So we did some digging and pulled together 15 of the best VR games that you need to play on Steam. Grab is sort of like The Floor is Lava. It's a parkour game where you jump, swing, and parkour around the map, avoiding the lava. The game is also multiplayer and allows you to play with up to 12 people online, and the game also has cross-platform multiplayer, which is a huge plus. Grab has probably one of the longest lifespan potentials of any of the other games on this list. Reason being, there are over 350,000 levels that the community has made. And not only that, but you and your friends can use the built-in level editor to make your own levels. The game sounds simple, but with the amount of stuff you can create and do in the game, it has a lot more depth than you may think. It definitely deserves a spot on this list, and we highly recommend checking this one out. Modules is a bit unconventional and something you probably wouldn't really expect to be a recommended game. It's an art game where you experience art through the VR headset. So, not your typical shooter or something you'd choose on your own, but I do think the game is an experience you should try if you have a VR headset. There are only 11 rooms in total, but each have a unique art perspective. The game is super short, less than an hour in most cases, but it's kind of a cool experience to try. It's not something you'd likely revisit, but if you have a VR, going into a game designed to deliver an artistic audiovisual journey, I think is something you should check out. Cards and Tankards is definitely a more social game, which is sometimes a big aspect of VR depending on the type of user you are. It's a social card collecting game where you can play with friends or randoms. There are over 230 cards to collect, 4 factions to play in, and customizable decks. I guess this one is really for people who like games similar to this, probably people who play games like this in person, but I think even if you aren't a person who normally plays games similar to this, it's a good way to get into it. Definitely worth trying out. If you've ever played Power Wash Simulator, Under Pressure is basically that, but in VR mode. And obviously it's free. It's actually got other stuff going on too, like volleyball, soccer, or even obstacle courses where you use your power washer to propel yourself around. So it's not an exact copy, it's got some unique stuff about it. It's also not exactly set up the same way as Power Wash Simulator. You kind of just import items to clean together, which I'm not sure I like it better, to be honest, but it does still have that satisfying cleaning aspect to it. So if you're looking for something chill to play and that is free, be sure to look into Under Pressure. X8 is a 5v5 hero shooter. It's sort of like Valorant, and honestly, I'm actually really impressed with the game. I'm shocked it doesn't have more players than it currently has. Also, the game is cross-platform compatible, so you'll be able to play with other VR users. The only negative with this game is the fact that, well, not many people play the game. You can always invite a few friends to play with, but if you don't have anyone to play with, there is a good chance there may not be anyone online. Hopefully this video can change that a bit, but there's no way to tell. Regardless, it's worth looking into. The One-Armed Robber has got to be one of my favorite games on this list. It's a first-person heist game where you and some friends, well, go on heists. You also have one arm to use. this game is probably going to be one you'll get a lot of playtime out of, just considering how much there is to do. There are various maps, skills, guns, all types of stuff. For some of the maps, you do need to pay, which is kind of annoying, but even then you'll still have a ton of things to do. It doesn't really get old either. There's always new ways to play the game and experience the heists. You can go stealth mode one time, and then another time you can go guns blazing. It's one of the best games on this list, so make sure you check this one out. So Capuchin is a bit of a weird one. Basically, you roam around the map, either alone or with friends, swinging, sliding, jumping around, and there really isn't a goal with this one. It's got some horror aspects to it, but I don't want to spoil anything. It's probably going to be something you play once or twice, and we highly recommend that you play with friends. You can play alone, but it won't be nearly as fun. Honestly, it's sort of a meme game, but it's free, it's for VR, and for the most part, it doesn't crash. So, it's worth having in your library. Okay, Grapple Tournament is by far one of the most fun and exhilarating games on this list. It's super fast-paced and great to play with friends, or even alone to be honest. It's a grapple shooter where you utilize movement and speed to basically break the other people's cameras and come out on top. The movement feels amazing in here. You can double jump, sprint, and grapple around. It all works together so well, and the gunplay is also super solid. It is very arcadey gameplay. There are tons of weapons, 4 primary game modes, and lots of different maps to play from. I feel the gameplay here speaks for itself, so go find this one on Steam. If you're looking for a single-player horror game, the Backrooms Unbounded is definitely something you need to look into. You play as a police officer who no-clips into the backrooms. Most of the levels are kind of what you'd expect from a Backrooms game. There are 8 levels in total for this one. It's pretty short, about 10 to 20-ish minutes long to beat, and the game has no UI, so it's super immersive. I get jump scared on non-VR backroom games, so this one is just on another level. It's not anything revolutionary, pretty much your standard backrooms game, but the VR aspect really does make this twice as scary as playing without a VR. Worth a playthrough if you like horror games. Mech League is a cross-platform multiplayer game with various game modes and some pretty cool movement mechanics. It's kind of like Mario Kart-ish, but it's a platformer with grappling and other advanced movement. It's very family-friendly and super fun to play with friends. You have some other things like cosmetics, but I think where the game really shines is with the custom map maker and the fact that you can play other people's maps. That'll really extend the lifespan of the game and give you more to do if you run out of the standard things to do. Great game to play with friends and family, and worth having in your Steam library. Rampage Agents is a multiplayer shooter game that has a battle royale mode and other multiplayer adventure elements. The multiplayer kind of reminds me of Gunfire Reborn, but obviously VR. The gameplay is really solid here, and the gunplay is good too. I prefer the multiplayer mode because, honestly, sometimes it's hard to find players in the battle royale mode. I definitely recommend going in with some friends to extend the lifespan of the game. There are over 100 guns and items, and if you're into skills and heroes, it has that too. It's honestly a really solid game, and it's super fun. The main issue is that there really aren't many people playing, which is why we recommend you go in with some friends. It's a solid game overall, so be sure to check it out. Sky Strikers is kind of like a VR version of Rocket League, but without the cars. It's a VR sports game where I believe you just have a 3v3 mode in which you face other teams to score goals. There are also tons of classes and abilities, which actually change things up a lot. It can be annoying sometimes, but it's a way of keeping you on your feet in case things change up. The game also gets updated frequently, and it seems the developers are extremely receptive to their community. If you like sports games like Rocket League, you're likely gonna like this one. Even if you don't like Rocket League, this game has a lot of unique aspects to it, so either way, you should look into downloading this one. We usually don't like featuring prologues that often on the channel, but Pixel Dungeon is actually worth your time. It's a good prologue. It's a co-op roguelite dungeon exploration game that you can either play multiplayer or solo. The dungeons are also endless, so really unlimited playtime potential here. There's also a lot of variety with the way you play too. Tons of weapons and ways to fight. You can throw axes, you can use a crossbow, you can use a sword, or even magic. There's also a skill system and different avatars to choose from. Honestly, you get a lot of value with the game and it's super fun. Oh, and there is a weapon forge system that honestly I don't know all that much about, but you can upgrade the weapons and get various attributes added to your weapons. Really solid game here and worth downloading. Ultimechs is another game similar to Rocket League, but you punch the ball into the goal and you play as a mech. The movement is something I'm not a huge fan of, but sometimes the sluggishness makes things pretty intense. It's been out for a while now actually, so getting in a lobby could be tough sometimes. If you go in with friends, you can easily spend hours matching up against each other. It's more fun than you may think, and the mechanics, graphics, and overall feel of the game is all really solid. Definitely worth checking out this one. Blaston is an oldie, but it's still worth playing. The game is actually very addicting and super fun to play with a friend. It's a game where you have to dodge the incoming projectiles while you also shoot and try to beat the other player. That's pretty much the summary of the game, but there are other aspects to the game. Customizable loadouts, avatars, tournaments, it's got a lot. It kind of reminds me of Super Hot, but PvP and Neon. It's a solid game, like I said, and it's something you'll likely want to play with others, but you could also play it solo too. You may run into issues finding players with this one, but regardless, worth playing and worth having on your system. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our live streams and new videos. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.